Okay, so welcome guys to this video, and the purpose of everything basically for today's video and the series that will be coming up is to cover for the classes that we missed. And also tomorrow there is a likelihood that we'll be having a moderation meeting, so I may not be there, so I'm trying to cover what we left off last time, and also make sure that we cover the manual using explainer videos. So in this series, I'll be talking about one thing: why do people behave the way they do? And we said, as a reminder, this is the ethics class, and we're trying to determine what are the rules of behavior and why do certain people make the right choices and others make the wrong choices. So there are certain predictors to this, and predictor here I mean what are some of the variables that need to be considered when trying to tell whether a person will make the right choice or the wrong choice. And we said last time that they include the following. The first one was what are the biases in question, and we defined biases as systemic errors in thinking, and we gave certain classification of biases, and I shall go through them today. Then you have distortions. Distortions are basically where you take information coming from you in the environment and you either generalize, you either delete or distort all the information for it to suit a certain narrative that is important to you. Again, there are different types of distortions. You have the third one, sorry. You have what we basically call values, values and beliefs, and this that we are looking at over here as values and beliefs guides basically the internal framework of a person. Then lastly, we have what you call the information that the person is dealing with. Now, if these are the independent variables that are acting as predictors of how ethical a person is in terms of their decisions, then there are other moderators that we can have here at the center. The first moderator is what you call the environment in which a person is in, and we have the law over here. On the other side, you have what you call the society, or the established ecosystem that the person is in. Let us start with the simple one. The environment in which a person is in, the environment in which a person is going to shape the behavior that a person is going to, or shape the decisions that a person is going to make, sorry. Now, this is what we basically mean. Assuming you have an environment here, A, B, C, and you have two people, party 1, I'll call them X, party 2, I'll call them Y. Now, if these two over here are identical twins and they're all subjected to the same environment, the question is, do they behave differently? Are their personalities different? And how they make their choices, is it unique or are they divergent, as it were? Now, these are identical twins. Now, assuming that you have sibling X on the other hand and Y, sibling X is a blood relative, as it were. They are the son of mother D and G. They bore a child and called her X. Then Y is an adopted child. In other words, they do not share the genes of parents D and G. Again, given this scenario over here, the question is, by virtue of the environment in which X and Y are in, are their behaviors similar? Are their personalities similar? And how they make decisions, is it similar? Now, we take the same case of twin brothers and twin sister, X and Y. One is brought up in environment A, B, C, and here this is a safe environment. This is an inclusive environment, and the crime rate is low, no drug abuse and all those. Then you have environment DHG over here, and the crime is high. That's number one. Drugs, again, a problem. Then you have unemployment, an issue on this end. So the question is, if this twin X was brought up in this environment and twin Y was brought up in this environment, will they be different in terms of their behavior? Will they be different in terms of the choices that they make and the very trajectory that their life takes? Now, these three scenarios are very important because they show the role that environment has in shaping behavior, and we can be able to see that 10% of the choices that a person makes, the person they are and who they become, can be attributed to genetics. But the biggest portion of how and why people make the decisions that they make can be attributed to the environment. Therefore, the environment is a predictor of the choices that a person makes, and this goes all the way even to our personal lives. For example, it is possible to tell what kind of a value system a person will adopt by just looking at their first three friends, their closest friends, the inner circle friends. Now, if we notice that the values over here towards a certain direction, then we expect the person that we are looking at to be the same. Now, the question then most researchers will ask is it the person holding the value system and looking for friends who agree with our value system, or is it the friends who influence the value system that the person decides? Again, there is no agreed consensus, but we can all come up to one very important truth, that the environment in which we are in is going to affect how well we make our choices. Therefore, we can change the person by simply changing the environment in which they are in, the people they're interacting with, the people that are inspiring or acting as role models for this person, the people that are their support system, and so forth and so forth. If we can be able to change that environment, then by a huge degree you can be able to change the choices that a person makes. That is environment. There's a lot that can be said around this, but that will be just for now when it comes to introduction. The other thing is the law. Now, there are two facets of the law here. There is what you call the stipulated thought system enshrined in the law, and then there is the enforcement of those stipulated rules. Now, the law is a summary of the mass consciousness of a certain people. Now, if we come to Kenya, LGBTQ as a society is not recognized, and it's enshrined in the constitution that was voted by the people. But if you go to other developed countries, you'll find that this is an accepted truth. That means that in terms of the progression of people, or progression of people's mindset, the law acts as a mirror of how far we are in advancement. There are certain laws that are archaic and very punitive and do not make sense, and they do not have any ground on they do not have any basis on data. And then there are other laws that are very progressive and they are supportive to any given ecosystem. Now, another thing to mention about the law is that it differs from country to country and from society to society. Therefore, what is legal in Kenya might be illegal in another country. For example, if you go to Ethiopia, it is legal, prostitution is legal. If you come to Kenya, it is illegal. If you go to Portugal, some certain banned substances are decriminalized, but if you come to Kenya, they are banned substances. All those conversations we're talking about, legalizing of marijuana and dealing with drug problems and dealing with prostitution, all vices, all societal vices, the way we handle them and look at them, we will use the law as the mirror which will guide our society on how to handle them. Therefore, the law becomes what you call an expressive image of what a certain group of people stand for. Now, the other thing is this. We said that it is very, very possible to have something which is legal, but unethical. Sorry, let me just clear this out. Legal, something that is legal, but it is unethical. It is also possible to have something that is illegal, but it is ethical. And this came from the quadrant that we showed here when it comes to this is illegal, but it can be legal. This is unethical, and on this side you have ethical. So we said you have four possibilities. The first one is where something is illegal and unethical. The second one is something is unethical but legal. The third one is something is illegal but ethical. The fourth one is something is legal and ethical. And we said that the easiest moral dilemmas are the ones that fall under this section over here. We know that the law does not support certain behavior, and it is unethical when it comes to society. Therefore, it should be that the person should make a decision contrary to whatever they are given. For example, it is illegal to engage in corruption, and it is also unethical to engage in corruption. But the question is, why do some people still end up doing whatever they do? This leads me now to the next part of the the legal debate over here. We said the law has two facets: the legal framework that is in place and the enforcement framework. Now, the enforcement framework is the one that is responsible for enforcing the rules in place. And we say that the degree to which a law is enforced, then that is how compliant a society is. Let me give an example of what I mean by this. We have a law, and this law bars certain behaviors. For example, having smoking zones. In other words, you cannot smoke in each and every place. Now, this here is something that is illegal to do, smoking in every place. But when it comes to the ethical question of it, in Kenya, there is not much debate. Some people would not even have ethical qualms with it. So if they find you smoking in a non-designated smoking zone, they're not likely to enforce it. We go to the second one, alcohol. There are certain boundaries and bounds of engaging in alcoholic beverages. For example, it is illegal to publicly carry alcohol without concealing the contents of it. But when we're thinking about it, there is not a very strict system of enforcement. Therefore, there are these tiny behaviors that will happen, and most of them will be illegal, but they are not raising serious ethical questions. Now, the thing comes in here. Most of our enforcement systems will come in when the thing which is being talked about is illegal and it is raising serious societal ethical concerns. For example, having too many liquor shops next to public schools. Now, that in itself is an ethical issue, and it's also a legal issue. So when you're talking about enforcement, it is possible to have a rule that is not enforced at all, and also it is possible to have a rule which is enforced in totality. So whenever we're thinking about ethical behavior, what are the enforcement systems in place? Now, once we're done with that, the other thing that we need to talk about is the society that we are operating in. Now, there are several things that we need to look at here. I'm Kenyan, yes. I'm black, yes. And I am male. But the thing is this, being black in Kenya does not make me a minority. Being male in Kenya does not make me a minority. Now, being Kenyan in Kenya does not even make me a minority. But if I take this context and blow it out to a country like USA, being black makes me a minority, being male not so much. But if I was female, then there is a disadvantage to it. And we're saying that there are other systemic issues that are coming up that have ethical considerations to be taken care of, but it is because of the societal system that has been put in place. Therefore, issues of colorism come up. issues of race come up, issues of gender come up, and issues of L sexuality, and just let's just call them LGBTQ, and all those things come up. And the question is, if a person is in a given societal context, and there are certain things that are happening within that societal concepts that they do that societal context that they do not agree with, do they have a voice to be able to raise those concerns, ethical concerns that are there? Now, if the existing truth does not recognize that, as it were, then it will become a problem, because a majority of the people will agree it is not an ethical issue. A good example would be slavery. That would be one very good example. Another one would be apartheid, which happened in South Africa. These two issues over here bring out the power of societal context when discussing ethical conversations. And in the first one, there was a time when it was a publicly accepted norm to own slaves and to make sure that these slaves remain yours till death. Now, once we moved away from that system, thanks to Abraham Lincoln, there were others that were having a problem with changing, especially the South. They had a serious problem with changing to the new system of thought. But that does not stop the people given that existential system to have that conversation. When it was a norm, it was a serious challenge. Now that it has changed, there's some people that are accepting slavery as an unethical thing to do, and this truth has to be advanced up to a certain point where it is a publicly acceptable truth that you cannot own a fellow human being as a slave. And these are some of the conversations that the Middle East is starting to have right now, where we're having issues of people owning other people in terms of laborers and so forth and so forth. The same thing happens to apartheid. Therefore, there are certain things that will happen in a given society that are just wrong and unethical. But unless we push that truth towards another direction, it will be hard to have those ethical conversations. Now, if we come to Kenya, there are several things that will come to mind. The first one would be FGM. This was basically a truth in the early post-colonial times, since 1960 to, let's say, around 1990s there. But it was a popular concept, and as much as the people fighting it had campaigned through our legal frameworks to have this thing changed, it is not until we came to the 2000s that we have an enshrined law that makes it in such that anyone exercising this type of backward behavior is arrested and prosecuted. Now, we have taken so many years to have this conversation about FGM. It is an ethical issue that has serious implications for any given society. Now, currently, we are talking about issues of tribalism, and we can be able to see tribalism playing out in a lot of organizations today and parastatals today. But we have not reached a place where we can have certain things legalized and illegalized, as is in this case. But that does not stop us from having a conversation. Again, this is what we have to talk about when we are talking about the societal context in place. So in the next video, I'll be talking about the following: the values and belief systems and how these affect the ethical decisions in place. Thank you.